Okay, I wrote a fable once that started that there was a mighty king that took over a culture. And this king used torture and fear to create obedience. And over time, people found that if they just obeyed what the king said, there was peace across the land. But what they sacrificed for that was their traditions, their customs, and all of their identity. So they just became a group of slaves, almost like cattle, that were used by the king. The threat of violence was enough to keep social order. But if the king went and killed everyone, then he would have to do all the work. So the people who are being victimized have a certain power, and they can stand against the king. And even though the king has all sorts of weapons that they don't have and all sorts of violence that they don't have, ultimately, they would likely prevail.
Hello YouTube and welcome to my channel. My name is Cleo and I'm kickstarting my cult series with the first cult called NXIVM. I saw a documentary series in hbomax that is called The Vow, and it was really good. So I decided to start with this cult. I would advise anyone to watch it, not only because it's so good, but I would also advise anyone to learn anything about cults. How the mind of a cult leader and how they recruit people and what kind of people. And what is their technique and so on and so forth. The reason why I wanted to start with this cult is because it's a pool of psychology, and I love psychology. You don't have to be well educated to understand this series. You don't. It's very easy to understand. I will get more into that in the end of this video. It was a long time ago when they released the second season. And if you do go watch the first season, trust me, that is nothing. You're gonna find that messed up. Then you're gonna see season 2 and you're gonna be like, what, could it get worse, really? Anyway guys, let's kickstart this, and hopefully by watching my video you learn something about cults. I truly do think you will, and it's important, and I'm gonna explain why at the end of this video. NXIVM was disguised as an help organization called ESP, and it stands for Executive Success Program. It is a method for strengthening and optimizing human behavior and experience. It's a human potential program not only geared for executives, and this is how Keith or Nancy or both said about the organization. Technically, they want to bring out our potential and then strengthen it. They want us to be able to understand our emotions. They want to help us build our self-confidence so we can become more successful in life, like either at work or just as a human being living among other humans. It's a program made so we can understand ourselves better and understand why we make these choices we do, and also teach us to make the right choices. I think I nailed it, yeah. And all of this sounds really good, right? For me, it sounds perfect. But let's get to the prices, shall we? Well, so of course, when you start off, the price is a bit cheaper. I wouldn't remember this, so I'm gonna read it off. This is what they showed in the documentary. Their classes goes from $2,700 to $7,650. Shit. So these prices I'm going to mention now for those that are starting off. So the first one is $2,700, usual cost $3,000. You get fundamental courses, small group sessions, 1 EM from head trainer, location near you. Okay. $5,100, usual cost $5,800, advanced courses, practical applications training, up to 5 free EMs. Now, $7,650, usual cost $8,500. Begin the journey one-on-one with senior proctors. Up to 10 EMs from head trainers, start earning commission. A proctor is somebody who takes charge of or acts for another. Some employees earn commission in addition to their base income, while other employees only work on commission. When an employee earns commission, they make a portion of a sale in income. We have set up these studies in a way that they are telling us that the more you take our classes or the more you buy, the more you gain as a person. Like, it will benefit you the more classes you take. And then at the end there, and if you take all our classes, then you also will get paid. You can get paid. You start to earn commission. This reeks pyramid scheme. So in their first session, they were told that they would feel a little bit uncomfortable. A TV was on and a video was played. I think this was like, this happened in all the classes. So there were a TV, and in the TV you could see a proctor. And the proctor is saying, every time you enter the room, you have to bow. Then the teachers explain that the most growth happens outside your comfort zone. There was a head teacher called Nancy, and then we have the founder called Keith. So Nancy is Keith's right arm. Not only were they taught to bow when they enter a class, or handshake in a special way, they were taught to call Nancy prefect, and Keith, the founder, vanguard. Nerd. This was taught in their first session. Keith explained that vanguard means leader of a philosophical movement. And then we have the sashes. You know martial arts, if you ever practiced it or haven't heard of it, they have different belts, like different colored belts, and these belts shows the different levels on the students. So we have orange, white, black, black being the higher one. Well, it's the same concept here. The sashes were connected to your achievements. They were kind of like a symbol of how far you've come in your studies and how many classes you have taken. Also, people that stayed in ESP wanted to become a proctor, a head teacher. And for those who wanted to stay and fight or work hard, probably found it really rewarding to get these sessions because of what they mean. And of course, they wanted to work all the way up to become a proctor. And getting there is the ultimate achievement, right? So it had to feel really good that they achieved something, and at the same time helping other people get where they are. And helping other people feels amazing. It fills you with joy. So that's why they did it. And also, if you stayed after you got told that you probably will feel uncomfortable, that you have to bow when you enter the classes, that you have to have a special handshake, get taught a special handshake, and that you have to call your head teacher prefect and the founder vanguard. If you decided to stay after that, then you are committed. And also, sadly, it has to become much worse for you to wake up and leave. The whole ESP was an empire, an abyss of classes. You could also form your own classes. There was always something to do. And the more you wanted to level up, the harder you had to work and study. And for people that wanted to become a proctor, they could wake up at 5 in the morning and study, and then study and work to 3 at night. The sad thing here is they were also promised commission but never got it, so they held classes for free. They could also change the standards for certain sashes, but I think that was the technique to just make them stay. Not only were you promised commission if you held your own classes, you were promised commission if you also recruited people or enrolled other people. This they did, but didn't get any money. The women in ESP had it worse because not only did they lack sleep, Keith was also controlling their diets to the point where they looked like walking zombies. Imagine yourself lacking sleep and nutrition and undergo these classes for hours. And this is also the reason why Nancy and Keith stressed so much that you won't get anywhere if you are not willing to feel uncomfortable. I can imagine it being very easy to manipulate a person that is lacking sleep and nutrition. And the longer you stayed in ESP, the further in the web of classes you went. They said it was good for them, but it was only to make them stay and to make them recruit more people. And for those women that stayed for a long time, became Keith's property. This organization that is built of classes, groups, promises to become a better you, to change the world for the better, was a lie. This organization was built for one purpose, and that purpose was Keith alone. His ideas and his own words came out of the teachers that just wanted to do well and thought they did. Keith formed a group called SOP, the Society of Protectors. That organization or group helps men to become more powerful and more influential, a man of honor and a leader. And we have a women's group that was called DOS, that Alison Mack started, and she said it wasn't Keith's idea at all, but that wasn't true. Alison Mack made a vow to Keith that everything he says goes. So he implanted the idea in her head and she executed it. DOS was where women got branded with Keith and Alison's initials. They had to lay on a table blindfolded, and they were surrounded by other women. Also, the women that were there could give the women on the table oral. Some women got sent to Keith and some women got photoed naked. And of course, the picture was sent to Keith. So this whole group of women, or this whole DOS, was made for Keith. And to be a part of this, you had to share a very, very heavy secret, maybe even take naked pictures, and send it over to them so they could keep it. And understand something. These women that recruited women to DOS didn't just walk up and say, hey, do you want to lay on the table, get branded, and be a part of a very cool sex group? No, that's not how it went. I know you're probably asking, but how could they say yes? Why would they want to do that? That wasn't how it really went. DOS stands for dominant over submissive. Sarah was told that this was something she needed, that this is a very cool women's group that will help her in her relationship, and not being a part of it was the reason why she wasn't advancing. this group would be something really, really good for her, and it would help her advance. Sarah had a very strong bond to the person that said this to her. It was her mentor. So that's why she kind of felt like she could trust her. The women that surrounded this person that was gonna get branded were scared and confused. And they had to hold the person down and smell the burnt flesh. Not only that, they got blindfolded to the destination, to the location where this took place, I mean. Sarah's mentor told her that just because you have a green sash, you have to show these women how it's done. Green sash is a high level. And that is where Sarah fought two emotions, right? Her instinct is telling her to leave. And then we have the programmed side of Sarah, which was programmed of years of manipulation, telling her to stay or else she's a coward and she will become a failure. You guys, some of you guys are still probably questioning this, like, why did she stay? Why didn't she leave? Still, you guys have to understand, it was years and years of manipulation in different classes. They taught these women to ignore their instinct. They taught them, no, they wanted to quiet down their inner voice as much as possible. That was the goal for Keith and the head teachers. They got taught for many years that if you want to become something and be a part of an amazing group that was seen as a family, then you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. They trusted one another. That's why it went as far as it went, because we're not talking like a couple of months. I mean, they spent years and years together. They were a family, basically, and they gained huge trust for each other. That is why everything that came out of their mouth were important, because they couldn't think, they wouldn't believe that the person would want them any harm. And that is why it went as far as it did. And that is why, for example, Sarah trusted her mentor, because this was a person she made a godmother and was a best friend. So the reason why she could talk her into it was only because Sarah honestly didn't believe or wouldn't believe that this person would want anything bad for her. And of course, to be a part of this woman group, you have to have a secret or just make something up if you don't have one. And or if you really don't have anything, just take nude pictures and let your mentor have it. But you don't only do it once. So as a part of DOS, you have to do this once a month. Give a new secret so they can have on you. Also, Sarah's mentor became her master. So everything Sarah did, the decisions she made or where she went, had to be reported to her master. Sarah didn't see so much of it calling her mentor master. She saw it as a joke. But at the same time, of course, probably she felt it a bit weird, but like I said before, this is someone she really, really trusted. Of course, if you're a part of DOS, you also have to enroll more women. These women were called slaves. So these women called slaves could do chores for you and even massage your feet. The reason why this got seen as sex trafficking is because they enrolled women into DOS where there were a lot of sexual activities. Also, the women had to be skinny and pretty for Keith because that is what he likes. Sex trafficking is human trafficking for the purpose of sexual exploitation. Women are forced into sexual acts that is non-consensual in form of sexual slavery. It is where the non-consensual becomes a problem for some people, because they think, well, I mean, she did it. She decided to do it anyway. And if you are still there after everything I explained, then you don't want to understand. Like I said, these women underwent years and years of manipulation, and they are surrounded by people they see as family. I can tell you this, and that is how Sarah explained it herself perfectly. If the first thing they said was, hey, do you want to go into a women's group where they get branded and also sent to Keith for sexual pleasure, do you believe that they would say yes? No. It had to go years and years and years to get to this point. Years of building up trust, years of manipulating, years of constructing you different from what you were hoping for. He broke them down and rebuilt them the way he wanted. I'm just saying, God bless that they had some instinct left so they could leave in the end. Anyway, Allison Mack got convicted of sex trafficking. When you decide to watch the series yourself and listen to how Keith spoke and Nancy, or how they taught about humans, I'm gonna say it here now, it wasn't wrong. What they said wasn't wrong. But the actual meaning of it, from their point of view, was evil. And the thing here is, it actually helped some people. It actually helped a lot of people, this program. And of course it had to work. How else would this function? How else would there be a business? They had to show that it actually helps people, so they can get more people in. It doesn't take away the fact that the core reason for this organization was to enroll as much people as possible, get more money, make them take so much classes as possible to manipulating them into staying. It doesn't take away the fact that this wasn't for the people, it was for Keith. But in what successful company do you say to someone, if you leave, you're a coward? In what successful or professional company does the founder kiss people on the mouth? Do you understand why Keith felt so comfortable as to planting an idea like DOS into Allison's head? Because after everything she underwent, the starvation, the lack of sleep, the ton of work, he knew she was devoted to him. He knew this. It kind of felt also like Keith got comfortable with those who were more close to him and have stuck around for a long while. He felt like, it seemed like he opened up more somehow, even if he wasn't really direct with the truth. But he got more comfortable because he felt like, well, they came this far. I know what I can say and not say, if you know what I mean. Excuse me if I'm a bit back and forth with explanation, or facts, but I feel like I need to give an explanation anyway. About DOS, you guys need to understand that before DOS, there was another women's group called Jeunesse. How I understood it was that they enrolled women from Jeunesse to DOS as well, because there they could analyze who could be a potential member of DOS. So yeah, it just didn't start directly with DOS. There were many women that left ESP. Many of them were skinny and pretty, and they didn't really say why they left. Then also, many did leave early because their instincts were very strong. And some people decided to keep contact, and some people just wanted to hide and not talk about it. And I just feel like the whole thing it's really sad. What happened next in the series was that Sarah's husband found out that she got branded. I mean, the brand was close to the down part area, but that wasn't how he found out. She told him, I believe. No. Her friend Mark told her husband, because her husband is also in this organization. And he flipped out. The messed up part here is that Sarah's master, that was her best friend, saw this as a violation to the group that her husband knows, and saw it as her choosing her husband over them. Me saying this makes my head go like really, of course she will choose her husband over you. Like, who do you think you are? But I also have to remember that Sarah's mentor also got brainwashed by Keith. Her story is a very sad one. You get to learn more about her story and the others in season 2 of this documentary. So this is where Keith really messed up, when he decided to brand another husband's wife. Nippy was also a member of Society of Protectors. Oh, and I also have to mention, it wasn't really the turning point only because Nippy found out. The turning point where Sarah was like, okay, I'm out, it was when she realized that it was Keith and Allison's initials in the branding, because she was told that it meant something totally different. So the goal now for Sarah and her friends was to get people out and get the truth out about Keith and the organization. Sadly, the authorities didn't take this as serious as they had hoped. Also, it became a battle between the people and the organization. It was a lot of lawsuits filed. And the people from NXIVM didn't give up at all. They were very, I would go as far as to say, crazy. And that is why people that actually did leave lived under secret addresses and such. I fought really, really hard, Sarah and her friends, to get the truth out and get the attention from the authorities. It wasn't until the Me Too movement spread like wildfire in the social medias that a golden opportunity came, and Sarah took it. The Me Too movement got widespread in 2017 when the actress Alyssa Milano urged victims of sexual harassment and assault to share their stories in social media. Many famous celebrities came out with their stories, and many of their stories involved Harvey Weinstein. So Sarah shared her story in social media, hashtagged it MeToo, and it ended up in the front page of New York Times. This was the new beginning of taking down the organization, a new fire of hope. So the team got praised and judged. And this made Sarah disappointed because the person that wrote the article, which name is Barry, didn't really take in the mental abuse that they had to endure through years. He didn't take the actual manipulation and the psychological aspect of the whole situation. So the people couldn't really understand how they could go along with everything, how they could let everything happen. So now it was important for them to find someone that could write about the brainwash and the manipulation process. Write about how taking a bunch of classes led these women into a sex slave group that was meant for their master Keith. The other woman worth mentioning is Catherine Oxenberg. Her daughter was in this cult, and her will to fight and get her back I believe helped a lot. I think this whole process would have gone slower if it wasn't for her. Catherine is an American actress and the daughter of Princess Elizabeth of Yugoslavia. She did many important phone calls, went on live interviews, so her fire to get her daughter back, I think helped a lot, and I don't think it would have been easy at all if she didn't help. So after all of that, they did get attention from the authorities, but they needed to hand over a lot of evidence. So the whole team collected a lot of evidence from other NXIVM survivors and brought them to the FBI. After that, Keith goes missing for weeks. Keith had fled Mexico. So after a long while, Bonnie and Mark, that's in the team, gets an important phone call. Keith has been arrested. I can't imagine the pure joy they must have felt. I found out today that there is a movie about this in Netflix. I didn't know. The picture I have there is the front movie thing. It's about Catherine Oxenberg and her fight to get her daughter back. I didn't know it even existed in Netflix. I have to check that out. I also want to explain a little bit something about Keith. This is Vanguard, the master. Before he founded NXIVM, he actually founded Consumers Byline Inc. 1990. The organization was born as a recruitment scheme that promoted discounts on things like groceries. And just like in NXIVM, he recruited members so they could recruit more in the promise of a big commission. It was said that he pulled $19 from each recruitment and that he sold $1 billion of goods and services. And the organization got investigated for a pyramid scheme. So after this organization got shut down, he founded NXIVM. I don't want to say that he has balls, but clearly, but yeah, man, he has balls. And he's filled with ego and crap, this dude. This is what was said about Keith, and probably what Keith said to others. Let's see. He is in the Guinness Book of World Records, said that he had the top scores in an IQ test ever given. And one of the top 3 problem solvers in the world. So his lesson to us here and now is, if your company or organization goes down because of pyramid scheme, just create another one. And you see, guys, how that went. He also learned French, German, and English before he could even read. He had triple majors in math, biology, and computer science, and a 3rd degree black belt in judo, and much more. All right, before I get into my own words, I want to talk about Barry Meyer. He worked for the New York Times, and he was the one that wrote the article about Sarah and NXIVM the first time, that didn't have so much of the psychological abuse. But he got a question, and the question was like, why is it important for you to write about this case or this situation? And he answered this.
What makes this NXIVM story newsworthy to you?
I would guess the central thing that I took away from it was how extraordinarily vulnerable we are as people. And how even people who on the surface are bright, are capable, talented, successful in many ways, have this intense vulnerability. And that vulnerability is available for someone to exploit.
There are so many people that are broken or has a wound inside. And they're often covered with smiles or riches or other things. And these are the people someone like Keith want to get in their clutches. And there are many more people like him that are waiting to take advantage of these souls. So I can't really judge them for ending up in a situation like this. Of course, there's some women that I still question a bit that were very close to Keith. Of course, I'm also like, but how? But I do understand manipulation. I do. What Keith did here was that he lured women that, or people overall, but I'm gonna go into the women because, you know, DOS. And he saw them as property. He found out what their vulnerability was. He found out what the wound inside of them was. What he knew they wanted, he gave them, but he took advantage of them. And he gave them a bunch of lies and a bunch of empty promises. And to be honest, I think Keith is a little bit wounded himself. Not for that is an excuse overall for what he did, but listen to this.
You know, I watched the way my father treated my mother, and I wanted to model my father, so I treated my mother that way. But when I get in the playground and some little girl takes my things and hits me with a bucket, if I hit back, I'm punished. Normally it's a father or a brother or another man grabs the little boy's wrist and holds him back. And normally we're something like 2. And that first time when that happens to us, it is unjust. We don't have the ability to reason this out. All we're seeing is that person can do and we can't. I'm not loved. I'm not the loved one here. I'm not the one that gets cared for. And all of us as little boys, to some degree, we experience what I call a wound. The indirect wound that a woman feels is, as she's a little girl, her life is protected, and she lives in this protected life, protected life, protected life, protected life. And suddenly, as she gets a little older, she starts hitting up against reality and against being suppressed, put in a glass box, and that is a shock. And what is the wound? The wound is she's been overprotected. But as men, we have a very direct wound. It's an ache, a hurt, a sadness. And maybe you can't even quite put your finger on it. But all the way back to the end, there was an inherent unfairness that we lived. This wound is something that is very deep and very emotional and something we have to come to grips with. Why? Because it can be the foundation of an anger and a hate towards women.
So that is the reason he did all of this. Man, all the things he did, all the things he said to all of these people just because his little ego got crushed when he was a child. I'm soon gonna play an audio of how he spoke to women, or spoke about women in front of them and in front of the men. So it's not the fact that he spoke to the women this way, it's the fact that he spoke for every man in the room. Like, yeah, we all agree about this. The saddest part was that Allison, you could see her nod and like, yeah, that's true, that's true. I know I'm not supposed to judge anyone here, but I was most disappointed at her because she was my favorite actress. She was my favorite character in Smallville. I love that series. It's a really good series. And she was one of my favorite actresses there. And I'm like, oh, so you chose that over this? Or they didn't have to choose. I'm like, so you went from that to this. I'm not supposed to judge, but I can't help but be a bit disappointed.
I'm going to apologize ahead of time to all the women because I'm going to really say things that are inflammatory. Is everyone okay with that? Yeah. Now, all the women in here, do you understand? All right, I have to get in the right frame of mind for this. Do you understand why we hate you? Do you understand why your obnoxious bothers? Why all your little whining and complaining and all this garbage that you do and how much you think you do, and it's just all a bunch of crap. Male perspective. That's not saying that is true. I'm giving you the broad strokes of the thing. You're outrageously entitled, you're spoiled, and no, you don't earn shit. Do you get it? So when you go and you put on those tears, there's part of us that absolutely hates you. You are the source of all our punishment. You are the source of all our liability. You are the source of all our pain. You are the source of all our aloneness. Everything that we're about, you go against by going wah, 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 wah. Deep inside all men, when you cry, we remember back. Part of us, even if it's not consciously, I believe, subconsciously, the time when we were a little boy and we just wanted mommy's approval. We just wanted to be held. We wanted to be taken care of. We just wanted love. Do you understand, though, that that's not allowed to little boys? Men, we take women's power away and we hold them as prisoners. Can any woman here say how she holds men as prisoners? Do you know what the force is? Yes, and it's control through sex. Because the reason why you hold on to the sex thing is it's the only way you believe you can survive.
Keith slept with a lot of women in this organization. He slept with whoever he wanted to. He slept also with the ones that was working closest to him, and they all knew about it. There were 9 women that wanted to leave, but before they left, they wanted to address the problem in this organization in front of Keith, of course, so they had a group meeting. He minimized them. He minimized them and the problem.
And I held a forum at my home to discuss the issues of NXIVM with the intent to address and confront Keith.
And that's when I found out the board consisted of all the women Keith had been sleeping with. And there were 9 strong women who wanted to confront him.
Who wants to start?
I mean, I can begin by sharing that each person here in this room has conveyed with me the work that we do and how essential it is to their lives.
Okay, so the first issue is the control strategies. There's a conflict of interest caused by intimacy and secrecy. It perpetuates a circle of people close to you that do not question your authority. And I don't know if you want to address this or if you want me to just go ahead and...
I think it's our preference.
Okay.
Not only that, there's nothing to address per se. It is true for you, so therefore it is true to some degree.
Because it's a part of our transparency issue.
Okay. Well, transparency doesn't mean everything is seen by everyone at all times.
What you present to the community is very scientific. However, you have oftentimes told me that should I have an emotional reaction that's negative, that I am altering your health in some form or fashion.
That's a half truth for me. But I will state that I don't necessarily believe or not believe in mysticism.
I think you've given us all the tools,
I believe I have.
but I think the tools get used against us.
It was like, oh my gosh, I'm in a cult.
The 9 of us, after 11 hours with Keith, all resigned.
He is so childish and so ridiculous, it's insane. He had relationships also. And if she knew about him sleeping with others and she felt a little bit offended of it, of course, he was like, yeah, what's the problem? Deal with it, like. And the thing is, if she wanted to break up with him or broke up with him, he got really, really butthurt, I would say. And the women around him and her started to, well, the women around started to freeze out her, this person, and act like she was crazy and start to gossip and talk a lot of crap among each other. And the same went to people that left the organization. He talks a lot of crap about women. He seems to despise them. He treats them like sex toys, and they are his property. How ironic. If it wasn't for 2 sisters and Nancy, this organization wouldn't be rolling at all. We're talking billions of dollars the sisters put down on this organization to have it standing. The only thing Keith did was plant ideas in their heads and said what they should say and so on and so forth. It was in the background if he now didn't speak in meetings and all of that. But what I heard, he laid on the couch a lot. And God forbid if a woman made a mistake, like maybe, let's say, kiss another dude or flirt with some other dude in the organization, that was considered a crime. Because if you're a woman in that organization, you only belong to him. And yeah, she did get punished. Or she had to punish herself, and the women told her. Even if these women had been around each other for years and had a good time with each other for years, and even if they did act or whatever, like they really enjoyed and liked each other and had a good friendship bond, if Keith said to one of the women, destroy her, she would. All of this attention from women makes someone like him feel very powerful, and that makes them do even more stupid things, like sleeping with girls that haven't lost their virginity yet. So they lost it to him. I just find it funny that he spoke for other men about manhood when he hid in the closet when he was about to get arrested. Keith doesn't care about anyone but himself. I truly believe that he enjoyed picking apart a human being and then rebuild him or her. My last words, well, like I said in the beginning, I think it's really important to educate yourself, and it is important now more than ever to learn something about a cult leader and what kind of people they recruit and how it works, because there's a lot of cults out there, and there's a lot of people that preys on vulnerable people. Like I said, depression is a pandemic. There are a lot of lonely people, a lot of depressed people, and yeah, going into TikTok nowadays, I at least see 4 videos where people are crying and don't feel well. They don't know why, and also it seeks answer and wants goals in their lives. I don't know how to get it. And these are the kind of people like Keith wants to hold on. People just want to feel like they belong somewhere, they want to feel needed, they want to feel important. I have seen season 2 of the Devour. It is really good. It is about the court process. It is about what was said in court. A lot of witnesses coming forward, and you get to hear a lot of bizarre stories. It just, when you see it, you think, what? It gets worse. It is sad. It is really sad, but like I said, it's really good because you get to hear from the lawyers, and it is definitely 2 different lawyers when it comes to thinking. It is insane. If you guys want me to cover that, I want 15 thumbs up. I also want to say that I really appreciate the NXIVM survivors for sharing their stories, talking about it still. I mean, Sarah has done a lot of interviews, and I think she has a pod. She also has a book. I appreciate that they want to teach people, that they want to show how it is to be in the clutches of a cult leader and what kind of people to stay away from. That is very good. I really appreciate that. So if you did enjoy this video, please leave a like and subscribe today for more.
The poem, actually, Paradise Lost by Milton, written a while ago. It's about the fall of Lucifer from the Garden of Eden. At one point, he's personifying Lucifer, and Lucifer looks up and sees heaven, and then sees heaven's creation, which is man. And you know what Lucifer's first reaction to man is? He is amazed by man. He admires, even loves man. One could interpret that. But then you know what his reaction is? That creature reminds me of what I lost. The perfection of that creature brings such hate, such memories, such awful things in me. I must destroy that. I don't want to see heaven embodied anywhere. So he seeks to destroy.